Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. This is the privacy and the security editions. These are recorded live Fridays, 8 p.m. Standard Time, brand new time. We're testing this out for a little while. I'm hoping that it will work out for you. It works out for me, and I figured, you know what, I might be a little bit more productive today because I don't have an hour to wait in the middle between stuff and not much time to do in an hour. But anyway, other than that, the show is going to stay mostly on tune. Thanks for the last-minute feedback before. We're also modifying the thumbnails slightly more, having much bigger text, and we're changing the font on each thumbnail so that it's not always the boring font. Somebody sent a comment over there. It's like there's great content over there. It just lacks the sex appeal because the thumbnails might be boring, so who knows. But anyway, we'll go ahead and proceed on. Let's go ahead and get started with the privacy news. First up, Facebook owner Meta fined 1.2 billion euros for mishandling user information. This case kind of made me chuckle a little bit. So this has to do explicitly with transporting EU user data to United States servers. So part of GDPR, a company operating in the EU cannot take EU users' data and export it to a third country, a third-party country. And that's really what it boiled down to with this. However, there's a couple things that you go, The ruling does not apply to WhatsApp or Instagram. It only applies to Facebook. And they have 6 months to actually implement those changes. So it's just those, I can't talk to you apparently. It is yet another one of those examples where it looks as though EU with GDPR, it's not about making the privacy work. It seems to be more about our funds are running low. Which big megacorp can we sue for $1 billion this week? Let's do Facebook. We haven't done Facebook in a while. What are they doing? I don't know. Transferring data across these. Great. Looks awesome. What's our deficit? Close to $1 billion. What if we get $1.2 billion? Sounds great. Think they'll pay it? I think they'll probably pay it without a lot of thing. Great. We'll give them 6 months to make the change. Gotcha. I feel like I was just doing one of those movie pitch things, right? Where it's the same guy. He just films himself from two different ways, like wearing a wig on one of them. Do you guys like those types of videos? I really don't. Let me know if you do in the comments down below. But this has to do with the unlawful processing of data in the U.S., personal EU data already transferred across the Atlantic, meaning the data will have to be removed from Facebook servers. It does not affect transfers of Meta's other main platforms, Instagram and WhatsApp. Meta said it would appeal against the decision and seek a stay on the data transfer order. They also have 6 months to implement this. So what in the world is going on? Very interesting, but we'll keep an eye on that one. Next up, ChatGPT comes to the iPhone, but there are some serious privacy implications. Yes, your super secure and private iPhones have some serious issues and implementations as far as utilizing ChatGPT. So you can get it. And the problem is that the ChatGPT, the official app is free. There is a paid version that supports the app, but it's not necessary. Of course, the paid version will let you do a little bit more advanced features. But the big problem with it is that, according to the article here, anonymized chats may be reviewed by our AI trainer to improve our systems. So whatever you're mentioning to ChatGPT on your iPhone becomes part of this anonymized chat system, and your data, whatever you ask it, whatever you say to it, is involved in being sent to the people actually auditing the code. So if you're asking about this strange foot fungus or this weird wart growing out of your leg or whatever else, and you ask ChatGPT about that on your iPhone, somebody's going to get that information. We know it's anonymized, but we know that that anonymized data can be de-anonymized pretty quickly. And so basically, OpenAI's privacy policy says, use our services. We may collect personal information that's included in the input, files uploaded, or feedback you provide. This basically means if you ask ChatGPT questions that contain any personal information, in other words, facts you'd prefer not share with a living soul, it'll be sent to OpenAI and can be read by a human reviewer, and that's a big deal. And I wonder if do we have like the Tesla cam thing? There's some secret Slack channel of human reviewers going, dude, this guy asked the most messed up thing in the world. They're comparing stories. If never mind. I was going to give a hypothetical example, but we keep this thing family friendly around here. So basically, if despite the iPhone app is supposed to be anonymizing the data, anything you ask it through the iPhone app will actually be sent to human reviewers in order to use it. All right, so the next one is the Python Software Foundation complies with a PyPy subpoenas to share some user data. So, of course, we've talked about, and there was actually another Python story I booted out this week because it was on the same front. Python scripts have been poisoned in many cases because a lot of people are going on grabbing Python scripts and just embedding them into their programs, just like we see the APK libraries for Android applications. Well, if there's a supply chain attack and malware gets involved in embedded into these software applications, then what can happen is it becomes a big problem across everything and everybody using this. So there's been some lockdown. So one of the stories we kicked out is the Python Software Foundation froze any creation of new accounts to audit the account creation process because basically malicious actors were creating new accounts and then poisoning the supply chain. And so in response to all of this, now the U.S. government comes down with a subpoena, and they didn't even really push back at all. They just kind of said to the lawyer, hey, should we do this? Sure, why not? And so Python is apparently just simply responding, giving up any information Department of Justice asks for. And they kind of say in here, the reason is rather than fight it, they're just like, okay, let them do their thing so that they can stop the malicious data. We all know that what the DOJ does these days, though, they're not seeking who's poisoning the supply chain. They're seeking people who go to like Catholic churches or something, because that seems to be what the main focus happens to be. So with that, though, the subpoena was related to 5 PyPy usernames. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I don't use these Python applications frequently from a programmer developer standpoint. But they asked for names, addresses, email addresses, residential business addresses, email addresses, connection records, records of session time and durations with temporarily assigned network addresses associated with those sessions, length of the service, including the start type and the services utilized, telephone or instrument numbers, including the registration IP address, means and sources of payment of any such services, including any credit card or bank numbers, and billing records of all Python package index packages uploaded by the given usernames, and IP download logs of any Python package index packages uploaded by the given usernames. So they just kind of handed all that kind of stuff over, and they said, well, sure, whatever. So it does appear to be related to the supply chain poisoning investigation, but at the same time, and this is one of the problems we have with so many of these services asking for so many things like, oh, we need a number. It's for security. But of course, if you supply it, they have that such information. And so we're seeing more and more companies buy into this idea of we got to create the accounts and then keep them secure with phone numbers or other data. Not like, I don't see too many companies come out and being like, hey guys, best way to keep things secure, YubiKeys. They should be doing it. This is the best, the most secure, and the most anonymous way of collecting, of securing accounts. But they're opting instead to hide that when it is an option. Many YouTubers still think you have to have a Gmail account. You have to give them a phone number. No, you don't. I don't have a Gmail account. I do not have a phone number on Google. I use a YubiKey, which is a valid way of doing 2FA. So you actually have to find my key in order to breach my account. Hopefully, unless, of course, I get whatever nasty thing was sent to Linus Tech Tips. So with that being said, though, the problem that we have here is that all of these companies are coming in and they are doing a lot of these different things, collecting the data. And then when the government turns around and asks for a subpoena of such data, they have such data, not because you willingly gave it, but because you were compelled to give it by the nature of the specific service. And on to our last one. This kind of has a little bit of a dovetail into yesterday's story. This is, of course, MIT Tech Review, and I disagreed with the overall premise of the article here for the reasons I will explain in a moment. But let's go over the article, and then I'll get into why I think that this is a bunch of BS here. So what we need to first look at here is your digital life isn't as permanent as you think it is. Well, thank God for that. All I can say. So this deals with Google will delete accounts after 2 years of inactivity, and experts expect more data deletion policies to come. Now, this does raise an interesting question because, of course, we know about the Selfish Ledger. This is your weekly reminder. Go watch the Selfish Ledger. It was a leaked internal Google document which illustrated their 3-point plan to utilize the data inside of Google in order to drive a social collective move. Think Borg integration of all of us via our Google accounts. That really is the thing. So it makes you wonder what is behind the data deletion of this. Is this meaning that they are shifting their ways and they're moving away from this huge zeitgeist of data? Or is there something else behind it? Or is it just, hey, we're kind of deactivating these so no one can log in, but we're still keeping the data? That is a good possibility, because if it's super inactive, you don't want it to be out there to get somebody breached. But does this really mean Google themselves is deleting all the data? But let's go ahead and have a look at it, because, of course, MIT, being how crazy they are, they're going to take the argument that we're going to lose our digital records, our digital life, and that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing personally. But let's go ahead and get into what the article says, and then we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail and why I come to the conclusions I do. So Robin Kaplan understands the fragility of digital memories intimately. After tragically losing both her parents in recent years, Kaplan treasures the digital possessions she inherited. She cherishes her mom's iPad, access to their email inboxes and message threads with both of them. It allows her to see the world through the eyes of her parents, she says. So, okay, watch the video we did last night and I'll teach you how to solve those. We did not tell you, get off of all these things for these reasons last night. We said, if you need to keep those services, back up your photos, back up your emails, back up your contacts. There's no need to keep a Google account around ad infinitum when you no longer need it because you have, passed away. But you can still collect the data. Okay, don't sit here and have this idea, I have to keep this Google account around because it has all of the data. Download the data. They do not make it hard. I mean, really. So after Kaplan moved away from her family in Canada to New York, why? Of course, Canada to New York. That might be a step up. I'm not sure. Is that a step up or a step down? I'm not quite sure. That's debatable. All right. Her mom had sent a text each morning converting the temperatures and weather reports from her new city from Fahrenheit to Celsius, along with suggestions for fun things to do she found online. Never actually learned Fahrenheit because I relied on this for the first 10 years, she said. Let me get into a little bit more of this here. So on May 16th, Google announced starting December 2023, they delete personal accounts that haven't been active in over 2 years. Photos, emails, and docs attached to inactive accounts would be eradicated as part of the policy. Accounts with YouTube videos won't be removed. I'm wondering if accounts with YouTube videos won't be removed along with all the photos and stuff, or if the YouTube videos will remain and everything else is allegedly gotten rid of. That's a good question. So other details still remain unclear, such as whether Google will make exceptions for accounts that have been inactive as a result of ongoing legal issues, or because they belong to people who are incarcerated or medically incapacitated, or vertically incapacitated, i.e. 6 feet down. Google did not reply to their questions. The company says the new policy is a move to increase security since old accounts are more vulnerable. This is why I take that stance. I don't think they're really deleting the data, because the zeitgeist data of how the world moves and grows is too important. But the ability for a brute force to hack into such accounts, that poses a specific risk that those accounts could then be polluted. So I don't think they're deleting the data as much as killing the ability to access the data on the front end of Google. I think that's probably more what's going on. Change my mind. Announcement follows a similar one from Twitter since last week, pledging to purge accounts that have been active for several years to cause an uproar among people who don't want their deceased loved ones' accounts to be deleted. Policy changes are a reminder of how fragile our digital lives are and just how little we control over their preservation. Like, no, you have a ton of preservation. Okay, so your parents who have passed away have a Google account full of photos. Download the photos. I don't want to lose their contacts. Download their contacts. But there's emails in here. Download the emails. We detailed how to do all that last night looking at software packages. But in this, what they're saying is this is a dangerous thing because now Google is going to roll out the change in this policy making such data not findable. And to be clear, I think Google is deleting the data from the people who might have some form of right to it, i.e. errors or things like that. I agree. But on the flip side of that coin, I think Google is retaining the data for themselves because they need such data for their studies, for their research, to progress how the world goes. I think that is a far more likely thing than simply deleting it whole cloth. I think that they're maintaining those copies. So that's kind of what my thought is. Let me know what you guys think about that. And it's a little bit of my thoughts mixed in with the article itself. Let me know, do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? And while you're thinking about that, if you want to help support the channel, we do have affiliates. Today we're highlighting Linode. Using Linode, or Akamai, I guess it would be called now, you can get $100 in credit, good for 60 days, using my link tlm.li/Linode. I host my restreaming server where I'm streaming this on multiple places simultaneously is over there. My private VPN's over there, my Jitsi server, Nextcloud, and all sorts of fun stuff. So with that, you can have a look over at Linode, or Akamai, whatever they want to call it these days, at tlm.li/Linode. And that will give you $100 in credit, good for 60 days. With that, let's head on over to security news. First up, it happens to be a day ending in Y, and that means there's another WordPress breach. 1.5 million WordPress sites are potentially compromised with an XSS vulnerability. This has to do with, of course, GDPR did this one. The beautiful cookie consent banner, more than 40,000 active installs. I don't know how we go to 40,000 installs to 1.5 million WordPress sites breached, unless they're counting deployment implementations and on the one number and in the actual WordPress domains on the other. That's one way to do it. XSS attacks, where threat actors inject malicious JavaScript into vulnerable websites that will execute within the visitor's browser. It can send unauthorized access to sensitive data, hijacking the sessions, and do various other malware things. Security company Defiant spotted the attacks as vulnerability in question. Also, unauthenticated attackers to create rogue admin accounts. So if you've ever seen your WordPress website all of a sudden get weird administrative accounts, I've seen this before. Had to clean a few of those up before and then figure out what the source of the problem is. But you can see here's their dates. So you can see the attacks really started 5/22, and then they've kind of been going up since then. So sites attacked and total attacks from there. And the update has been pushed. And let's see. I think the update has been pushed. Okay, I can't see right off the top. Let's see. WordPress to patch, unpatched plugins versions up to and including 2.10.1. So make sure you are the latest version of beautiful cookie consent banner if you happen to be using such a plugin. So let's move on. Android phones are vulnerable to fingerprint brute force attacks. Another good reason not to use a fingerprint to unlock your phone. They did test the Android phones, they tested iPhones, and they tested Harmony OS, which was Huawei. They found that on, I didn't see the follow-up on Harmony. iOS, they could use the basic means. They're basically utilizing a fingerprint library that has leaked. Think about that, guys. Now fingerprint libraries are leaking online. They've used the fingerprint libraries to brute force the fingerprint mechanism on the phones. Now, on the iPhone, they have not found a way to bypass the amount of times you can attempt. So they only can try it up to 20 times on the iPhone before the iPhone locks itself out of fingerprints and requires you to use a passkey. Okay, so with that, the iPhone is technically vulnerable to the fingerprint dictionary attack. However, they can't get past the limitation. On Android, they can get past the limitation. They can trick the phone into an unlimited fingerprint try and then compare it to the fingerprint dictionary, and they can breach into a phone. The good news is they have to have physical access to your phone to do this. And maybe also the good news is maybe the three letters can stop saying we need to break all encryption, because apparently you can get around that. So there you go. I didn't see if Huawei's Harmony was also susceptible, but that's basically how it worked. They used here's the operating board. They have an auto clicker which is able to test out all the different things, and they used a specific means to get around the locking. There's ignore lockout. This is how you did the override with this particular device. They were not able to override on the iPhone, but I didn't see anything about the Harmony, but who's using Huawei anyway, right? And so if you are using your fingerprint, it could be compromised should somebody want to get in there enough. All right, now a new take on malware, as malware constantly is being evaluated or evolving here. This is a new Dropbox link. So utilizing Dropbox and other services like OneCloud and Google Drive and things like this. So what they're doing is they're creating the free 30-day accounts. They're storing the malware on either Dropbox or on Google Drive or on OneDrive, and then they're utilizing the Dropbox email link feature to people, and then when you click on the link, you are downloading the malware. And so that's how this particular link is happening to work. And so it's backing and forthing across all of the different services, and since the email is a Dropbox link and not an actual file, it completely gets passed and delivered, especially if they're using, Gmail accounts or Office 365 accounts in order to send the data. It's getting into your inbox, and now the danger is, are you going to be clicking the link or not? So, of course, the best thing is don't click the link in the email unless it's from somebody that you were actually expecting. Because remember, some of these attacks, they'll send the email out en masse to the contact book. So you receive a link from me because I'm in your address book, and I didn't really send it. You think it did, because spoofing email is like, that's something we figured out how to do, 10 years ago. Spoofing email is easy. You spoof my email with a link to a Dropbox link, and you're like, oh, what cool thing did you send? And you click it and you download malware. That's a problematic thing. So first and foremost, if I'm in your contact list, I do not have a Dropbox account. I will not be sending you a Dropbox link, nor will I be creating a Dropbox account. No, thank you. Sorry, I'm not using that crap. There's a KeePass exploit allowing hackers to recover master passwords from memory. I wanted to cover this one because of a few things. I use KeePass XC. I recommend KeePass XC. KeePass XC is a completely different program from KeePass. This is not a vulnerability in the KeePass library. This is a vulnerability in the explicit KeePass application that is used to interface to that library. So if you're using KeePass XC, you are not vulnerable to this breach. If you're using KeePass, please drop KeePass and switch to KeePass XC, because despite them knowing this is a vulnerability, they'll get around to releasing the patch in June, they said. This is why KeePass XC is a thing, because they looked at what KeePass developed and said, no, y'all don't move fast enough for something good. So CV 2023-32784 impacts key version 2X for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, expected to be patched in version 2.5.4, which will likely be released early next month. Great. Apart from the first password character. It is mostly able to recover the password in plain text, they discovered. So, of course, this is KeePass. KeePass XC is the green logo, okay? Make sure you're using KeePass XC, not KeePass for your password. I believe the good news of this, if I remember correctly, I think this one, they had to have physical access to your computer, so it's not something that you could get and expose online. I believe that is the case on that one. So just a public service announcement to make sure that you are using a secure password manager. And on to our final story today in security, trade-offs in VPNs. This is why I do not always recommend VPNs. We started throwing Nord back in my list of VPNs, and just because I want to start having a few more VPNs and a few more affiliates in there. And the reality is VPNs are over-marketed. Too many people are saying, you have to have a VPN. And you hear it on the people on the left. You hear it on the people on the right. Everyone's telling you need a VPN. I still think the most hilarious thing is when Matt Walsh, who just experienced a massive hack of every one of his online accounts that had to be de-anonymized by finding out who he was, is still pushing ExpressVPN because I hide my information online. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up, okay? A VPN does not universally save you. It is not a master, I have the VPN, I am secure, oh my God, you cannot touch me with my VPN. No, there are fundamental problems with them. One fundamental problem is most of the VPN companies are only owned by a total of like 3 companies. That is a problem in and of itself. It causes an amazing shift in trust to the VPN company because you are trusting that one company for everything you're doing. Now, is that better or worse than your ISP being trusted for everything you're doing? All you're doing is kicking that can down the road. That being said, I do not think a VPN is a useless tool. It is a tool that you have to use in conjunction with when you need it. Okay, you don't use a hammer for everything, and you don't use a VPN for everything. You need a VPN explicitly. If you're constantly using coffee shops, you need a VPN because you need the secure connection, and the VPN protects you when you are using an open internet. Number 2, you need a VPN if you need to break out of geo-restricted locations because you can set your IP address from any one number of cities and countries across the world. That is a valid use. You need a VPN if you are testing things in different geolocations. That's kind of a subpoint to B. You need a VPN if you have reasonable belief that your ISP is more untrustworthy. So these are the reasons. The problem is that everybody thinks they need a VPN because of all this over-marketing of VPNs. And with all this over-marketing of VPNs, everyone needs a VPN. But some people are like, I just can't afford a VPN. Let's look for the free versions. That old adage goes, if you're not paying for it, you're the product being sold. And the reality is, happens most of the time. And so what happens here is there's a lot of companies that are coming out with VPNs on the coattails of all this marketing that everyone needs a VPN, which everyone does not need a VPN. And then what they're doing is they're pushing out things like Super VPN. Now, what happened here is a multifaceted effect. The first problem is that Super VPN was logging everything you do and storing it. They were storing email addresses, original IPs, geolocation records, unique user identifiers, references to visited web pages, and more. The problem came is when their services were breached. So now a hacker has access to everybody's IP addresses, email addresses, and all the websites they visited. You see, a company, I believe Nord has been tested. I know private internet access has been tested. I know Mulvad has been tested. They just don't keep anything at all. None. They're like, nope, we don't even log it. We don't keep it. We have nothing. Police showed up to Mulvad not too long ago. Okay, hey, we need stuff. We don't keep it. Sorry, we got nothing for you. You know, whereas Super VPN is a super leaky VPN. So don't get super leaky VPN, and reevaluate. You do not need a VPN for every situation under the sun. So make sure that you are being aware of that and making proper decisions for what you need. Well, if you want to help support this channel, we do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/TOMM. You can jump on over there, and that'll support the channels, all the different channels that I do. With that, thank you for watching, everybody, and we will see you all next time. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.